It usually gets quieter when we ring that bell every day for our morning research meeting, which we do for the entire firm. We have about 840 colleagues. Hi, Amy. And everyone joins us from all of our offices. We push them upstairs, the people in this office, so that we could welcome you here today. Welcome. It's good to have everybody here. My name is Mike Hankin. I'm a partner and CEO of Brown Advisory. Somebody referred to this as Mike's house. That's humbling. It's not, but I do enjoy coming to work every day here. And several colleagues in the room, I saw Josh Perry, Amy Cito, Bridget Peterson. I'm not sure who else is here, but it's good to see everybody. So I have a long history with the Community Foundation. Some of you know, if you went way back to early 1980s and looked at the charter, the original corporate charter for the Community Foundation, you would see that I signed it as a lowly, maybe first month associate out of law school. And there's no other significance to that than I was the lowest person on the totem pole. But I have many other connections. One of the first really significant gifts to the Community Foundation came from a good family friend and law client, Harry Isaacs, way back. And later on, we added the Isaacs Scholarship Fund. I was honored to be a trustee for a number of years. And we have a lot of donor advised funds at Brown Advisory in the name of Brown Advisory colleagues. Ann and I have one that we've had a long time and is very meaningful to us. And lastly, I'm a huge fan of Shanesha, and that means a ton. So we're honored that you're going to have this meeting here today on the subject of impact investing. So I have a long history with Brown Advisory as well. This June 30th, we will celebrate our 25th anniversary as a private and independent firm. Thank you. And we're thinking about it a lot. We're not big into celebrations, so we're not going to have a celebration. We're going to do something that I think will be very meaningful for the city of Baltimore, but more about that in a month or so. But when we think about our anniversary, overwhelmingly, our thoughts are ones of gratitude. Gratitude to our clients, some of whom are in the room today, gratitude to our colleagues, to our directors. We just had our quarterly board meeting of our holding company board in San Francisco last week at a new office that we opened there a couple of years ago. We've had an independent board since day one, and we're celebrating. We have many new members of the board and rotated off some of the people who were stalwarts, who had been there for a very long time. We're grateful to our shareholders. We have a very unique ownership structure. Every single employee of Brown Advisory, all 850, own equity in the firm, and no one owns more than approximately 4%. Together, we own 70%. And the other 30% is owned by a group of about 60 individuals, also none of them owning more than 4%. So it's huge. Every person you meet as you're walking around today is a shareholder in Brown Advisory. Finally, we're very grateful to the people in the communities in which we live and work. We think about them a lot, and we know we have a responsibility to them as individual citizens and what we describe as a business citizen. There's a responsibility that comes with the footprint that we have in these communities, especially in a city like Baltimore. And this is what has led us to try lots of different things, from United Way to Baltimore Core to Conscious Venture Labs and to many, many more, to our work in the harbor. A really important footnote, 89% of the time, and we're testing daily today, 89% of the time, the water off this pier is swimmable. It's incredible, and it compares favorably with Boston today, probably better than the Charles River, with Chicago, with San Francisco, and San Diego. In 2018, over 240 million gallons of sewage poured into this harbor as a result of leaks in the system. In 2022, only 5.3 million. I expect it'll be lower this year. That's incredible progress. And we're all here living in Baltimore. You know how tough we are on each other. Think about that as an important step. Lastly, we think about our community in terms of our work with Upsurge, where we're a founding partner, and proud to celebrate today, actively, over 400 startups doing work in this community. Think about that. Most of us don't realize how much activity there is outside these doors. And then our work with BCF. We're proud to be a supporter, proud to serve on several committees, and here, Shanation knows we'll do whatever we can to be helpful. We also believe we're making an impact through our work in sustainable investing. And it's important, I just want to take 1 minute to talk about that, because there's a lot of pressure on this around the country. We're getting blasted by some very noisy people. Our work there, and we're trying to be very hard to talk about it in a clear way, is we're active managers using different sustainable inputs to drive better investment outcomes. We look over a little more than 30 billion, and we're one of the largest around the world, based here in Baltimore. We talk about a lot of these things, especially about the principle of independence and of independent thinking in our annual report, which we have copies for you all out there. We haven't emailed it out to our shareholders yet. And it's not like a normal annual report. You won't find a lot of numbers in there. But you will find things that matter to us, that we aspire to do and be. And we hope that you take a copy, read through it, and share not only your thoughts, but any questions you have and how you think we might be more helpful out there in the community. So with that, I want to thank you for being here. We're happy to support you however we can. And I'd like to turn it over to a very important member of the Baltimore community, Tom Bizzuto.
I don't know about important, but I certainly know about grateful. And Mike, I'm sure that like everyone in this room, I am grateful to Brown. I'm grateful to you for all you have done for the Baltimore Community Foundation, but more importantly, for the Baltimore community. You all have been, for 25 years, extraordinary leaders, and I ask everybody to join me in thanking you. I want to thank you all and welcome you to this morning's Investment and Impact briefing. I hope as you look around, you see, as I do, that the Baltimore Community Foundation is more than just an institution. It's a community. It's a community of people who are committed and care and use their philanthropy to support the citizens and the residents of Baltimore. You know, I've reflected a lot on the power of community over this past year as the Baltimore Community Foundation has celebrated its 50th anniversary. Half a century ago, some very thoughtful, caring people founded our organization. But they could have focused purely on the challenges of the day. The shuttering of industries, the departure of many people from Baltimore, rising disinvestment and equality. But instead, what they did was they brought together an organization that would combine the philanthropic resources of the entire community to address issues, problems that hadn't even been anticipated back then. Things like the digital divide, climate resilience, and an epidemic of gun violence. Today's event, we will focus on two issues critical to addressing these and the many other problems affecting our community. First, we will talk about investment and our long-term investment strategy and how it is contributing to and ensuring the endowment, a strong, resilient endowment for BCF. As part of this, we will also take a look at the lasting influence of those investments on our community. We will discuss how they have built safer, cleaner, greener, and more vibrant neighborhoods, and how they have contributed to support the young people who are the future of our community. Our investment strategy, which we will talk about this morning, has been built using an indexed approach for just over 5 years. We will be sharing the results for that period and intervening time spans. Secondly, we will also be reporting on the results of our impact investment activities, an effort we launched 5 years ago to support programs and projects that offer both a financial return and social and economic benefits. What you hear this morning, I encourage you to supplement by reading Shanasha's well-written column in this morning's Baltimore Sun. And I congratulate you on that, Shanasha. I too am, like Mike, a big Shanasha Sauls fan. BCF is very fortunate to have a group of distinguished investment professionals guiding our investment committee and guiding as well our subcommittee on impact investing. And I stand here as, for the board to thank all of those people for sharing their great expertise. Yet none of what we do, none of what BCF has accomplished would be possible without all of you who are joining us today. Thank you for being here, and again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you all do for our community. On that note, I would like to introduce BCF's president and my hero, Shanasha Sauls.
Good morning. First, I would just like to thank Mike Hankin, the entire team at Brown Advisory for their generosity, hospitality, and partnership. You all just represent in many ways what it means to be a civic leadership organization in Baltimore, and your leadership and vision just means so much. This is our first year in person in 4 years. Perfect place, perfect day, perfect view. So thank you. I'd also like to thank the team BCF. It's always a good day when I show up in a dress, and literally I showed up in a dress. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say. It's right here on this piece of paper. So I want to thank the entire organization. If they don't mind just briefly standing up, just to be recognized, because they make all the magic happen. All right. They didn't all stand. They're rather shy, but they are here. They are here 20 strong. So thank you and good morning. I am BCF President and CEO, Dr. Shanasha Sauls, and as Tom mentioned, we are here to reflect on the past year, which was indeed momentous. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, and to honor that milestone and ensure that the leaders and doers that launched this community were appropriately memorialized, BCF commissioned a book. Yes, indeed, we have a book. 50 Years of Lasting Impact. It is free, and each of you will have a copy as you exit this morning. Please take it, read it, sit it on your coffee table, and enjoy. It's not just about BCF, it's about Baltimore. It's a beautiful story, and thank you for your part in building it. Speaking of appreciation, I must thank someone who was my partner in crime and now my personal partner in crime, Ms. Dara Schnee. Stand up and wave, Dara, in the back. Who was not only my first hire, but my thought partner, the person I could call at just about any hour. She'd wake up, what is it? And I needed her help on this particular event, even as she made a personal transition. Dara, you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. So last year, 2022, which is quite the momentous and volatile year in many ways, marked the end of a strategic plan at the Baltimore Community Foundation, which was launched about a year after I started in early 2019. That strategic plan guided BCF to new heights and unexpectedly through our pandemic response. And perhaps the most consequential last few years of our lives, BCF collaborated, and we embraced collaboration. We joined broad coalitions with many organizations represented here today to provide millions of dollars in COVID relief, to confront the digital divide, to connect households across Baltimore. We made impact investments totaling more than $6 million in affordable housing, small businesses, and solar. And we helped purposeful donors and partners open 112 new funds to direct their giving and to make an impact in Baltimore. And since just 2020, the year of that global pandemic, BCF, its fund holders, and its partners have distributed more than $102 million to build a better Baltimore and beyond. In the last year alone, we created the 50th Anniversary Neighborhood Grants Fund to increase grant making for resident-led projects that make neighborhoods cleaner, greener, safer, and more vibrant. We launched a new program, the Neighborhood Spotlight Awards, to recognize unsung heroes who make those community-led projects come to life every day. We co-invested in national conference, the Mission Investors Exchange, co-hosted rather, the Mission Investors Exchange National Conference, which brought together hundreds of the country's leading impact investors to see Baltimore, and I'll tell you, they loved it, almost as much as we do. And we opened our doors on our first street-level headquarters, which includes an art gallery for local artists. In times of isolation, and I am an introvert, and I like being by myself, and uncertainty, over the past few years, we learned that we have to be a gathering place. And I realized that I needed a gathering place, and Baltimore Community Foundation has been that for me. We believed, as all of us here today, that our individual contributions can be multiplied for a greater impact for a community, and the results speak for themselves. Despite a pandemic, political upheaval, and market volatility, giving to and through BCF year after year continues to be strong and even increased. In 2022, we also learned that our strategy needed to adjust. We knew that we could not be what we were in order to respond to the world that is and what those years will bring. And so in order to be able to respond and stand in partnership with our stakeholders and the new dynamics facing our city, our region, and indeed the world, we needed a new strategic plan that will guide us for the next 3 years. It identifies 3 goals. Number 1, we need to provide the best in-class service to our donors and stakeholders by spotlighting the challenges facing our region and the issues and the initiatives and the causes that will move the needle. Secondly, we need to leverage our philanthropic relationships, our civic leadership expertise, and our networks to move the needles on key issues facing our schools and our neighborhoods that need us more than ever, as well as to address the gaping digital divide, youth mental health, school climate and culture, and of course, the gun violence that is ravaging our communities. And third, we need to strengthen BCF from within. We experienced a tremendous last few years, and we blew past every single goal that we set for ourselves. But as we say at BCF, a part of our goal is to also keep our promises. So we will build the systems, the infrastructure, and the culture to remain resilient in our operations and our people and our practices as we plan for the next 50 years. As you see today, that progress is already underway. So before we get to the investment results, I should say we have some very special people here today, extra special people, and I got to sit next to one of them. More than 10 years ago, we established the Professional Advisor Recognition Society, which we also call PARS, to honor financial, legal, and accounting professionals who are dedicated to promoting philanthropy in their service. The members of this elite society help their clients make financial plans that leave a legacy for their own family and charitable giving plans that improve Baltimore, our favorite kind. So today we're honored to induct these 3 new members. Please join me in welcoming 2 special colleagues. First, John Gilpin, BCF's Director of Gift Planning, a former professional advisor himself who just couldn't stay retired. No matter what, he just can't stay away. We thank him for that. As well as our just named new Vice President of Philanthropy, Ashley Mancinelli, to introduce these new members. I am delighted to work with Ashley, as she previously led development for the Walters Art Gallery, is an attorney with a background in law, estates, and trusts, and she will be a tremendous asset to me, to us, and to all of you. So thank you, John and Ashley.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanisha. I am so excited to be here, and I'm truly honored to be part of such a dynamic community. Some of you I have already had the pleasure to know through my 10 years in Baltimore, and I'm thrilled to continue working with you and support causes that you care deeply about. For those I have not met, I hope you will introduce yourselves. I am eager to meet as many of our fund holders and donors as possible and ensure that BCF remains a trusted expert partner. Speaking of trusted experts, I'm proud to be joined by John, BCF's Director of Gift Planning, who will give a little background on our 3 new PARS members, Jonathan Ackerman, James Stone, and Susan Havanik.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
As Ashley mentioned, we're introducing 3 distinguished members of the professional community into our PARS today. 2 of them are here in attendance. One, unfortunately, or fortunately for her, is on a very nice trip to Colorado. For all 3, philanthropy has played a central pillar in their practice and their lives. And very importantly, they let us know about the intentions of donors whose plans they worked on. It's very important to do that so we can recognize and completely understand the donor's intention for gifts they're going to be leaving through their wills or trust agreements. First, Jonathan Ackerman. There he is. Jonathan Ackerman is with the law firm of Jonathan Ackerman, and for the past 35 years, he has had a practice involving organizational philanthropies, financial planning for those organizations, as well as charitable gift and estate planning, probate, federal and estate tax procedures, and business formations and transactions. John served as president of the National Council on Plan Giving and was a founding member and past president of the local Chesapeake Plan Giving Society. John, please join us and say a few words.
Thank you very much. Good morning. What an unexpected honor this is, and it's nice to see everybody here. John mentioned a couple of the things that I've worked on and how I really got involved in philanthropy. I have a tax background, so originally I worked with a lot of tax-exempt organizations, but moved into the charitable gift planning arena through the local organization, the Chesapeake Plan Giving Council, and then the national organization, which was then called NCPG. And these organizations were trying to bring together diverse professionals like the members of the Advisor Recognition Society to work together to educate and to network to create basically more better gifts. And as I got involved with the national organization, I gained a more national perspective. And that really helped me out, especially in one regard. You know, I've created a lot of irrevocable charitable gifts, and they've all been fine by me. Let's say in the 90s, you know, the market was going crazy and capital gains had a different impact. So people were looking at the tax consequences very significantly. So I've structured many irrevocable gifts that of course benefit charity because they were irrevocable. Funds would always go to charity through these gifts. But what I learned was that I wasn't engaging the donor adequately in considering exactly what John was talking about, the philanthropic piece. So I kind of looked at a mental construct, and I promise I'll only be a few seconds more. And that was at one end of, let's call it a chain, was the accumulation of wealth. And at the other end is a good social outcome, because that's ultimately what the donor wants. And we need to, as advisors, help those donors, engage those donors in thinking through philanthropy. And the topic of impact investing, and there was a wonderful article today in the Sun, you know, is another innovative way that we can talk to donors about meeting their philanthropic goals. So you have this chain, all of us advisors are along that, and that chain has to include, you know, development officers, you know, fundraisers for charities, because if the ultimate goal is a quality social outcome, then those donors, to get the most meaningful gift, you know, have to consider the philanthropy piece. So that's kind of what I learned, and BCF plays that role, and we know their roles are varied and wonderful for the community. But they present professional staff that can help us advisors create more better gifts. And to me, they are uniquely positioned to help us with our donors as an institutional way to understand the current and evolving needs of the charities and the individuals that those charities serve in our community. So that, in my perspective, makes BCF so incredibly valuable. They strengthen that chain so that, in essence, we get more better gifts. Thanks for this honor.
And I'm pleased to speak a little bit about our second inductee, James D. Stone. Jim has a long, distinguished career serving of counsel at Bowie & Jensen until his retirement, and previously as a partner with Hill, Johnson, Foley, Stone, and Miles, and their predecessor from 1972 to 2002. Throughout that time, he practiced estate planning, wills and trusts, estate administration, and general corporate law. Jim has also served as an officer and director of the Callert Foundation since its inception in 1993, and served on the board of Family and Children's Services of Central Maryland, and as president of the St. Mary's College of Maryland Foundation, among others. Finally, something close to my heart as the daughter of an Army man, he served in the U.S. Army in the Special Operations 116th Military Intelligence Group from 1966 to 1969. Thank you for your service. Jim, please join us to say a few words.
Thank you. I might share a story about how I got interested in philanthropy, because after the Army service, I came back here, was practicing law, when I got a telephone call from Geneva Boone, which is probably a very distant name. Maybe Gus Lewis remembers her, but she taught for about 40 years at the Calvert School. And then she decided that she really wanted to be involved with college administration and went on the board of St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland. The telephone call, which was not a surprise, I guess, was later when she called me and she said, here's what you're going to do. It wasn't really an option, and they wanted to start a boat donor program. And I knew nothing about boats, but it didn't matter. If Geneva told you this is what she wanted done, you went out and you did it. So that was ultimately a terrific success story because they had a very good sailing program at this college, and which allowed the solicitation of boats to be donated to them, kept for a certain period of time, and then disposed of generally. But it was probably the primary fundraiser for the foundation at St. Mary's College for a number of years. So that's a great thanks that I have to Geneva Boone kicking this one along. And I also appreciate the reference to the Callert Foundation, which has done an awful lot of good in this community. They made grants this past year to some 100 different entities, and the Callerts are fortunate in having family that are very committed, very, very intelligent about what they want to do with funds. So that's been a great treat for me. So that's what I will share. Thank you.
Our third inductee to PARS is Susan Havanek. Susan is a wealth advisor and senior portfolio manager at RBC. She creates personalized financial plans and custom investment portfolios for her clients. Susan and her team work directly with their clients' attorneys and accountants so that they can understand the complete financial and tax picture for her clients. Susan is a member of the Baltimore State Planning Council and is on the steering committee of the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, which I am proud to say is hosted by the BCF. Susan is unable to be with us today, but I'll accept her plaque on her behalf and get her picture taken with it one of these days. She did want me to let you know that she is very happy to have been introduced to the Baltimore Community Foundation, and she has in fact set up her own fund named for her mother, which she intends to endow through a testamentary gift. So way in the future, the fund will be able to provide great impact for Baltimore City. Now I'm pleased to introduce Patty Baum. Patty is a wealth manager with RBC, as well as vice chair of the Baltimore Community Foundation and chair of the investment committee and chair of the impact investment subcommittee. We're thrilled to have her here today to provide valuable insights on BCF's investment strategy and performance. Patty.
Thank you. You guys are probably sick of me because I have been the investment chair for quite some time, but it's really wonderful to be back with all of you in person. I feel really fortunate that we could have this space. Thank you to Brown Advisory for allowing this to happen. We're really appreciative of all that you have done for us for this day and for a long time, many years. As most of you are aware, our investment committee, and I see Matt Weiskell here, I don't know if, Matt, there's a number of people that are here that are involved in our program, made up of really seasoned investment professionals. And we decided, as Tom noted, to shift to a passive investment strategy around 7 years ago. So we felt at the time it was sort of time to make a clean slate, and we worked with our advisors at the time to set up a diversified portfolio of index funds. The committee developed a target asset allocation with a Vanguard total return stock market as an index for the U.S. stocks, and then a Vanguard international index for our foreign exposure, and an emerging markets index for the emerging markets piece, and a couple of bond indexes, short and intermediate term, for that part of the portfolio to provide some ballast. And in addition to these core positions that are in our portfolio, about 5 years ago, thankfully, the board of BCF authorized us to put 4% of the pool into this impact investment program. And that really was a wonderful time when we learned that we could start this. At the time, it was in the neighborhood of $5 million. So this is carved out of the fixed income portion of our portfolio. So I'm happy to say that after a year or so of successful work in this program, the board authorized us to increase our allotment to 5%. So this means we have about $9 million right now invested in impact. So I'll talk more about that program. The program's called Invest for More, but I'll mention it more a little bit later. First, we'll start with performance. And I know last year was a painful year for most investors, and BCF certainly was no exception to that. Our pool was down 15.8%. The world was really grappling with devastating war in Ukraine. Obviously, we're very divided politically. We've emerged mostly from the worst of the pandemic, but we continue to feel its effects throughout all over the society in the past year. So the most significant near-term result of these events was the return of high inflation. So central banks, including the Federal Reserve, responded last year with aggressive rate hikes, hoping to slow the economy and to bring down prices to more normal ranges. This very rapid policy shift by the Fed was really it ended up causing an historic bond bust last year. So when normally bonds are sort of the ballast in the portfolio, they really were, the U.S. aggregate, the bond index, was down over 13% last year, which was the largest decline in bond prices since World War II. Consequently, the fixed income portion of our portfolio was down 12.2%. The sharp drop in bond prices was a dominant force in financial markets, and it really led to double-digit losses for stocks. In fact, it's the first time, I believe, in history that both the stock market and the bond market were down over 10% in a year. The U.S. equity portion of the BCF pool was down 19.6%, slightly worse than the 19.2% of our index, the Russell 3000. Our non-U.S. or foreign equities fared better. They were down 15.3% last year. But let's move on to a little more positive news. So we'll talk about the fourth quarter of 23. We did fare better than most last year. We did lose 15.3% overall, but that loss was certainly better than the more than 20% decline in the three major indexes, the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. In November, we started to see inflation ease a bit. So it led many investors to believe prices were stabilizing, the economy was slowing as the Fed was intending, and they might be able to start pursuing a milder course. So that does help explain that in the fourth quarter, our portfolio rebounded and we gained 7.6%. And we finally really continue to see the value of the impact portion of the portfolio. One thing that was a pleasant surprise as we went through last year was that the impact piece was not affected so much by the bond market because it's really an interest rate sensitive, where these are private loans that we're making. Even with the RBC Access Capital, which was one of the programs which is invested in mortgages for affordable housing in Baltimore, even with that decline, which was an interest rate sensitive investment, the impact pool was only down 0.2% last year. So that part of the portfolio did fare much better than our bonds. You see, it's just not as interest rate sensitive. So now we go to 2023, and January of the first quarter was the strongest in recent history. But then about half of the gains in January we gave back during February and March. So the biggest news, of course, in March, everyone knows about, were the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. And so that led to precipitous drops in a lot of the bank stocks as investors worried about contagion across banking. But fortunately, calm settled over the markets, and by the end of the quarter, the Federal Reserve had made a commitment to the bank depositors to make them whole, the two banks, and even the ones that weren't insured. So that gave the market a little bit of a breather. So altogether, the BCF pool gained 5.6% in the first quarter, just shy of the 5.9% of our benchmark. Contributing to our performance was the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, which was up 7.2%, and the Developed Market or Foreign Market Index was up 7.8%. We also achieved a 3.3% return on our bond portfolio, and the impact portfolio was up 1.1% for the quarter. So the end of the first quarter brings our 3-year annualized return in the portfolio to 10.9%, and our 5-year return at 5.8%, which is above our benchmark, which is 5.4%. So overall, I would say the investment committee feels confident that we have a really strong and strategic asset allocation, and we have a very disciplined rebalancing process, which has certainly helped us over the course of the last few years. So most investors, I'm sure everyone in this room, understand that there are going to be volatile periods in the market. We know that with the extreme COVID sell-off, with the tech wreck of 2000, 2001, with the great financial crisis of 08 and 09, these things happen. And so long-term investors really have to understand that it's best not to respond hastily and negatively to those kinds of market stresses. This is the beauty of having a strategy that involves really no human emotion. We really have a process, and we want to stay with it. We know staying the course through the inevitable ups and downs of the market really help us achieve returns befitting an institution that really has a long-term time horizon. So on the next slide, you'll see our target ranges for each of our asset classes. Our U.S. equities were at 37% of the portfolio by the end of the first quarter, and the range is 32 to 44%. So if our U.S. stocks fall below the 32% floor, then we shift money into stocks. And if conversely, if we get over 44%, we will shift money from U.S. stocks into one of the other asset classes. So this rebalancing has really helped us, and I think if you remember last year, we reported that in March of 2020, we really blew through. The market really was terrible, so we got a chance to shift a good bit from from bonds into stocks. On the next slide, we'll show the performance growth of the portfolio over the course of the last 4 years. So the blue part is the BCF investment pool, which is over $180 million, and our money market assets, which are just over $35 million. And at the end of since 2018, the BCF investment pool has grown by over 40%. And what this means is that it contributes to the whopping amount of money that BCF has been able to grant, which has grown by 50% over the last 4 years. So it really shows the power and the importance of the investment portfolio to the Baltimore community. So let's take a look at the impact piece. As a reminder, this is guided by an impact investing subcommittee, and they're made up of representatives from local foundations, investment firms, CDFIs, community development, financial institutions, those who are dedicated to impact investing in their professions. And I see several of my committee members here, and I commend you for an amazingly rigorous conversation every time we meet. It is really a fun committee. We began our Invest for More program. We established several objectives. One is to align more of our capital with BCF's mission and community programs. Two, to generate social benefits for Baltimore as well as a financial return. 3, to further our commitment to racial equity and inclusion. And 4, to really differentiate BCF from some of our competitors, and that's by doing place-based, Baltimore-based investing. So I'm happy to say we are achieving these objectives. In 2022 alone, BCF investment helped 96 small businesses get started or thrive. It created, improved, and preserved more than 2,400 units of affordable housing. It created or upgraded 6 major amenities that make our communities vibrant, green, and livable. And thanks to BCF's investments, alongside other local funders, some of you here in the room, Baltimore has become nationally known as a hub for innovative impact investing that centers communities' own visions for their future. In fact, this past December, as Shanesha mentioned, more than 600 philanthropic asset managers from across the country came to Baltimore and joined us to see our impact investments up close. At this Mission Investors Exchange Conference, BCF was called out for our leadership in impact investing. Participants at the conference took a bus tour to go drive around the city to see firsthand the benefits of some of our loans. We strive to keep impact at the core of our investment program, but these loans have also provided financial returns, and as mentioned earlier, the pool was only down 0.2% last year, and the broader market was obviously down a lot more. We have averaged 2.5% since inception, and we're targeting between 2 and 3% as our financial goal. BCF's success in impact investing has gained the attention of several local institutions who have approached us inquiring about ways that they can collaborate and just join us in this program. And so our staff is working diligently to identify opportunities to make this leverage concept a reality. You may recall when we started about 4 or 5 years ago, I was up here, not here, but I was at the briefing, and I said our $5 million may not make a difference in Baltimore, but if we can get more and more partners to join us and really leverage this, we know that we really can make changes. So I'm excited about that. The next slide shows how this part of our portfolio did in the recent quarter, gaining 1.1%, as I said, during a market rebound. And the next slide is just showing the weight of our portfolio by social outcome. So you can see we have affordable housing, small business development, green infrastructure, and some job training. Together, we really think these loans are helping make a better Baltimore. And I want to just take a second to shout out Chris Warman. Chris was with us from the very beginning of this program. He is a valuable staff member who I have enjoyed watching grow in the role. Chris started on the finance committee but has moved over to community program. But thankfully, BCF has allowed him to continue to be an incredible resource for us, and I am really grateful to you, Chris, for all the work you do on our behalf. So now I'd like to welcome Nnamdi Ito. He's CFO of Rock Springs Capital and a member of our Impact Investment Committee. We've seen each other on Zoom quite a bit, and it's really nice to have Nnamdi here in person to talk a little bit about a couple of the impact investments that we have made. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning, everybody. And, I do want to say I'm privileged to be working with all of you on the execution of this promise of achieving both investment and social outcomes. So I have the distinct pleasure of telling you about a few of the investments we made over the last year, bond market volatility notwithstanding. First, a project you may have heard a lot about recently. We invested $250,000 in the Transform Lexington Market project to extend affordable, responsible credit to small, Black-owned, women-owned, and city resident-owned businesses. These loans are ensuring that the economic impact of this project is inclusive and that the market reflects the community it serves. We previewed this investment at last year's briefing, and I'm pleased to say that the market is now open. Next, we made a $200,000 investment in the Climate Access Fund, which finances community solar projects in low-income communities. Over the next year, this investment will help to install panels on the rooftop of Henderson Hopkins School in East Baltimore, providing lower-cost renewable energy to low-income families. The project will also provide paid apprenticeships in solar infrastructure, entry-level wealth building via equity ownership, and will reduce carbon emissions. The final investment I want to tell you about today will have a lasting impact on individual lives and the community at large. In 2019, BCF was one of the first investors in a loan fund at the International Rescue Committee's Center for Economic Opportunity, or IRC-CEO. Staff at the Baltimore branch of the International Rescue Committee have helped resettle immigrants and refugees from around the world in our region for decades. Many face profound challenges on their journey here and arrive with little money, no credit history, and no understanding of the U.S. credit system. IRC has long provided financial education and coaching to new arrivals. Now, thanks to a BCF impact investment of $250,000, their subsidiary IRC-CEO is able to provide microloans that help families build credit, secure vital resources like cars and homes, and ultimately transition to the financial mainstream. I'm proud to present a video here that shows the impact on a few families and on Baltimore, a city with a long history of welcoming new arrivals.
The International Rescue Committee is a worldwide organization. It was founded by Albert Einstein. It helps people displaced by humanitarian crises to first find security and safety, but then also start rebuilding their lives over time.
The Center for Economic Opportunity is a subsidiary of the International Rescue Committee that offers small dollar loans to clients that are engaged in programs that are operated by the International Rescue Committee across the U.S.
The Center for Economic Opportunity offers a range of low interest and zero interest loan products that help clients do things like establish a credit score or buy a vehicle or pay for immigration and education related expenses.
The Baltimore Community Foundation was among our very first impact investors. From an impact investment standpoint, you can give me a loan, and I will take that loan and deposit it directly into the bank accounts of refugees, immigrants, and low-income members of the community around us, providing an alternative to payday lenders, to fringe financial service providers, building the underlying asset bases of the community, and I can return your funds with interest.
The Center for Economic Opportunities loan program is growing exponentially. There's huge demand from our clients.
America's different credit score or financial position is like that. It's totally different for me. When I came here, I learned from RN this whole things, how to build your credit score, how to apply the credit cards, how to use that credit cards. They all things I learned from my financial coach.
El tipo de préstamo que recibí fue para comprar carro o refinanciar mi carro porque yo ya tenía carro y ha sido una gran bendición para mí. El dinero que estoy ahorrando de la diferencia en mi anterior préstamo lo estoy usando para ahorrarlo y poder comprar el próximo año mi casa.
Ми отримали два види кредити від компанії IRC. По-перше, це невеличкий кредит для поліпшення кредитного рейтингу. І по-друге, це кредит на машину. Друге, це змінило наше життя тут. Я можу нормально працювати, я можу діставатися до роботи і обратно. Раніше це мені коштувало, я віддавав 20 чи 25% від свого заробітку на проїзд до роботи і назад на таксі, тому що не було іншої можливості.
Having a partner like the Baltimore Community Foundation, which is really plugged into the local community, is really valuable because BCF understands the community's goals and hopes and dreams.
They supported not just with impact investment that gave us the capital that we needed to be able to do the work that we do, but also supported the other side of the model in helping IRC with grant funds that helped launch the financial education program, through which then CEO's loans first became available to Baltimore residents.
No es fácil como migrante llegar a un país donde no conoces a nadie, no tienes nada, y encontrarte con programas como estos que te ayudan. Entonces vale la pena y es una gran bendición.
Now, thank God it's good, going good. Because of you guys help me. So now I am running.
BCF has really been innovative, and I think continues to be innovative in putting money into funding that can not only support the programming that's happening now in Baltimore, but the programming that's needed for the future of Baltimore.
Hello. I need this? Great. Good morning. I'm Bridget Peterson, head of the Endowments and Foundations business here at Brown Advisory. So welcome to our space again. We're so glad to have you. A number of people ask how you can get involved with the Invest for More Fund. A number of our staff around here will be happy to talk with you about it. But first, you can donate to the Invest for More Fund directly. You can also invest a portion of your non-endowed donor-advised fund in the BCF Investment Impact Pool. There is a lockup of 7 years. Or you can open a donor-advised fund specifically for impact investing, choose an investment from the BCF Impact Pool. There is a minimum lockup period specific to that investment. So now I'm pleased to open the floor to questions. We've heard a lot today, a lot of really good kind of insights from our team. But please join me in welcoming Patty Baum, Chair of the Investment Committee, Chris Warman, BCF Program Officer, who works on grant making and has been invaluable to the impact investing effort at BCF, and Kajra Mobahedi, Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee Center for Economic Opportunity. Thanks, you all. So I have a couple of plant questions, but I'm sure that there are questions out here for this panel. Anyone want to start? Okay, well, while you're thinking about it. There's one. Great. Yes, David.
I got a question. Can you go back a slide? Back slide, please. Can you go back one slide? Good. Okay. The sentence there, the one in the middle, the bolt in the middle, would you take that and deconstruct it into ordinary English?
Sure.
I don't understand what that means. There's an awful lot of heavy words like that.
Yeah.
I will try. So if you have a non-endowed donor-advised fund, which is a specific type of donor-advised fund you can establish with a community foundation, you can take a portion that is invested. You can take a percentage of that and place it into our overall impact investing program. So rather than picking a specific project to be involved with, we'll deploy it across the entire portfolio. So, Patty mentioned that there's about $9 million in the portfolio. That'll be $9 million plus X number that you designate for the Invest for More program through your non-endowed donor-advised fund.
Well, essentially, a person is loaning you money for 7 years or more, and how you to invest it for your benefit. Would that be a way to put it?
So by default, your non-endowed donor-advised fund is going to be invested in something so that you can continue growing the grantable portion of it. So you can elect to put that into our general, long-term pool, or as an alternative, you can designate part of that to be invested through our Invest for More program instead. Sorry, I hope that was helpful. Yeah.
Just to add, you might just want to speak with one of our people in the development donor services, because they can help you understand, because there are just a few parameters, because we're making loans that sometimes have maturities of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. We just ask that that portion you can't grant out while it's being invested, but you will participate in the same returns that the pool does with that portion.
Right. Yeah. David and Mayanka. Mr. David over here.
Other questions? So Chris, you work on both the grant making side and the impact investing side. Can you talk about how those two are connected?
Sure thing. So BCF's grant making generally is focused on improving Baltimore's neighborhoods and improving Baltimore's schools. So the former of those, that's a pretty wide open. Improving our neighborhoods has a lot of dimensions that you can approach that from, including investing in vibrant small businesses, affordable housing, and programs like COSRAs that help our new neighbors fully integrate into our community in Baltimore. So in that regard, it's helped us to deepen some of our grant making that we're already doing in neighborhoods. But another way to think about it is that it's allowing us to participate in high impact sort of activities that we wouldn't otherwise be able to participate in. A $100,000 loan or a $100,000 grant for BCF is very overweight. It'd be like a big deal if we did a $100,000 grant. $100,000 is the minimum amount for our impact investing program. So it just enables us to participate in areas that our grant making capacity is just not there to participate in. And I think I should also add that when we establish our impact investing program, the Invest for More program, we also established a special grant-funded BCF that's specifically only available to our loan recipients through the Invest for More program. So Kaiser mentioned during the video that we provided a grant to IRC to support the financial coaching position there. That was a special grant through this special fund we established to recognize that these two different tools in our tool belt, there can be opportunities to align and create greater impact that synergy.
Great. Any last questions? Yep, in the back.
The last time we got together like this was 4 years ago at DOA Piper, and the impact investing was a very brand new thing then. And so I'm curious now that you've got a few years under your belt, what's a lesson that you've learned, maybe something that surprised you that you didn't expect?
That's a great question. Well, I think we worried a little bit about pipeline at the time when we started, because you wanted to start as low risk as possible. And that was sort of how we got buy-in from the board to say, we're not going to take a lot of risk. What we're going to do is make loans in the community where we see the need. But we worried a little bit about whether there would be, a great pipeline of opportunities in Baltimore that would provide both social and financial returns. And so what we've learned is that there is pipeline. Obviously there's a lot of need. But the other thing I think that has been so interesting for me is just to find other philanthropies in Baltimore who want to do the same kind of thing. So I'm excited at least about the opportunity for a number of other foundations to join us to participate in the program so that we can really make more impact. I think as Chris said, and I said to Tom earlier today, it's when we make an investment, it can be $250,000 or $500,000, or we've made a couple at $1 million. That's just not something we can do to grant out. So this is a way for us to get real capital into the city where it's needed, and see it's exciting for me to see the returns. The metrics have been great, and also to get the financial return.
And then Mickey, I saw one.
Yeah, I was curious about how the broader economic environment is impacting impact investing and grant making, especially as you look ahead to the end of 2023 and into 2024. considerations of if there's potentially recession or inflation, and does that actually trickle down to impacts and how it does within your Invest for More work and grant making at BCF?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say clearly, and the investment committee is paying attention to those kinds of things. But as I said in my speech or talk, that we're not necessarily going to make major changes in our portfolio in reaction, but certainly if the recession brings the market down to some degree, we will shift assets there, because we do believe long-term that we should stay invested. In terms of the impact work, I would say that the people at BCF, including Chris and a number of other colleagues, really do get hands-on in terms of assisting the people to whom we're lending. So we are, especially during COVID, we really had people out there talking to them to make sure that their loans were going to end up being good. And we've not had a default. We've been very fortunate that our program people and our just staff have been visiting and making sure that these programs are still thriving.
Sure. I don't want to take all the credit for helping out with bringing the impact investees up to speed, because our very talented subcommittee is also donating quite a bit of time to help people refine loan policies and think through their deployment models and stuff like that. I think Patty raised COVID as like an example, and I think that's a really telling example, because we were really worried. A lot of our impact investments are in small business intermediary lenders. We're like, oh no, these businesses aren't able to open. How are they going to make good on these loans that we've supported? And just to use an example of Baltimore Community Lending is one of our primary small business lenders. And all of our lenders, to a certain extent, exercise these unorthodox models that are patient with their capital, that are flexible with repayment schedules. They're not as beholden to, I won't say they're not beholden to returns, that's not true, but there's a human element that you won't find in traditional lending that our CDFI and mission-driven partners are able to offer to the individual small business borrowers. And that has offered us a little resiliency for our loans that we didn't even anticipate as we were considering loans to these offices. And all of our small business loans are like that. They all allow for some level of technical assistance, some level of workout program. And then in addition to that, a lot of them have at least partial guarantees on their loan pool. PCL has a 20% cash loan loss reserve they maintain on their balance sheet for loan losses. So I don't know. I don't think in the medium term we're changing the direction. Thank you.
I'm sorry, there's one last question. Susan?
Speaking of your portfolio, please forgive my ignorance. For the money that you have in the bank, in your investments, waiting to be given out to make a big impact, what is your statement of philosophy about those funds? Do you have screens? Do you have socially responsible statements, so that you won't be investing in certain types of industries?
For the traditional part of the portfolio.
All money that is not already out,
So cash.
Yeah.
That's a great question, and you're asking me a question I'm very much for trying to use those kinds of screens. But basically what I would say is that based on feedback from a number of donors and a number of stakeholders at BCF, we made the decision that our impact piece was going to be place-based and in Baltimore, and wasn't as concerned about necessarily negative screening, because there are a lot of different opinions about what that means. And so, some people don't want to invest in guns, and some people don't want to invest in, other bad actors, you would say. Our cash is invested. We actually recently made a change after the bank failures to make sure that our cash is guaranteed. And I would say that's just sitting there waiting for the opportunity to be invested in the impact pool as we find more programs to invest in. I'm not sure that answers your
spending time with us. Here is the book. It's free. Take 2 copies with you. Counselor, you did not say any words. 30 seconds, please close this out. The video was wonderful, but I think you should have the last 30 seconds.
Just would like to express my deep appreciation to Chris and the Baltimore Community Foundation. The story that was told is absolutely true. This was our first debt as an organization that we took on our balance sheet, which at the time was a couple $1 million. And in the last 12 months, we've put out $10 million of loans. We've made 1,000 loans in the last 6 months, and we've taken the $250,000 ECF investment and made $500,000 of loans in Baltimore to over 100 refugee and immigrant families. So we're deeply appreciative and look forward to continuing our partnership. Thank you for having us.